In my life, there have been struggles. Yes, these eyes have witnessed pain. So many times I've been close to destruction, and this troublesome world has thrown me away. But as I walk through the valley of shadows, as I run through fire and flame, a beautiful embrace on the day when all is lost in the fire and the flames.
So I felt confident about myself, I felt confident about my voice, and I thought, I'm just going to go up there and enjoy it. People are there to enjoy the event, so I'm going to give them something to enjoy. So I was very nervous before the event, but alhamdulillah, when I did get there, and for me, when I do just get up on stage, everything sort of shuts off. I shut off everything which can have a hindrance on my performance. It's very difficult to do, especially because half your mind is thinking, you know, people are here, they're going to judge you, it's a new place, you know, your first words have to be very precise, your first words have to, you know, your first recitation has to be very clear, very pure. So half your mind is thinking about that, and the other half of your mind is thinking the words, don't forget the words, you know, don't forget your script, don't forget the story, don't forget to recite properly. So your mind is just it's a swirl of emotions, and it's a swirl of different thoughts. But you have to really just blank it all out and say, look, I've done my practicing, the people are here to enjoy themselves, give them something to enjoy. If they judge you, you've done your best. If you've given 100%, you've given 100%. If you haven't given 100% and people say, they catch you out for it, then that's your fault. So I blocked everything out, went up on stage, and I gave 110%. So I felt as you know, a minute into it, 2-3 minutes into the performances, you feel very more comfortable. You feel at home. You're comfortable with the mic, with the sounds of the mic, the levels of the mic, how much you can hear. Within the first 5 minutes, you're comfortable with that. So then the rest of the 40 minutes was a doddle, because it's just a replica of what you've done before. So it's very comfortable for me.
Don't leave me, 'cause maybe I won't get to see you again. It hurts me to think that this could be goodbye, my old friend. For many, many years, you gave me reasons to keep looking within. You bruised me, but leave me more in love with the one that was sent to take me higher, away from desire. And I spent 10 nights in grief. I'm hoping for peace, but I don't want to sleep. And when I close my eyes, Karbalai, your land is in my mind, and I can't stop these tears. No, I won't find peace tonight. This fire in my heart won't die, and even in my dreams I cry.
I wanted to introduce this new form of recitations. Now, this new form of recitations, what it includes, in very briefly, it includes the introduction of background choruses and background hummings and background echoes within the recitation. So what I would do is I would play a track which includes hummings and which includes background voices and background noises. I would play the track, and then I would do a voiceover for this track. So what people will be getting out of that is a new form of recitations, because for the last 7 or 8 years, the only form of recitations was very one-dimensional. Voice, recipient, melody, recipient, very one-dimensional. I would have to, as a reciter, be able to to really cement the traditional form of poetry and recite it in a melody form, very one-dimensional. What I wanted to do was to introduce another dimension to the recitations by which background voices and echoes and hummings were then introduced. So people subconsciously hear the background stuff as well as hearing my voice. So that was what I wanted to introduce. And I know that there was a need for this because most of the youth, look, I've been doing this for about 7-8 years now. And for me, it's all about creating new ways in which we can engage the youth. You can always do the normal traditional forms, but that sometimes get repetitive and it gets a bit tedious. And most of the youth, they always want the latest trends and they always want the latest stuff. So what we're trying to do is we're creating a new form so that the youth can engage.
In my life, there have been struggles. Yes, these eyes have witnessed pain. So many times I've been close to destruction, and this troublesome world has thrown me away. But as I walk through the valley of shadows, as I run through fire and flames, I hear a voice whisper sweet songs of freedom. And I feel stronger than I did yesterday. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. And I remember the tears of the children, burning hearts and brothers pure. All I see are visions of murder, a falling flag, a lion's roar, and all I hear are sweet songs of freedom.
Initially, this idea of introducing background hummings and choruses and echoes, it started in Dearborn last year when I was there for the Ummah conference, the conference of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, I introduced some sort of humming. It was very, very low tone, but it was just an introduction to gauge the audience, see how they feel about this second dimension of recitations. It was a huge success. I replicated the same thing in Tanzania. In Africa, again, huge success. I did the same thing again in Muharram. Now this way, what I did was I introduced a latmiya in the background. So it wasn't a nasheed chorus or humming. It was a fully fledged latmiya, the track. So again, I've been doing it for the last year 3 or 4 times, but I wanted to solidify this concept by means of a story. So my latest album is called Beautiful Embrace. Now, Beautiful Embrace encompasses struggles, complications, trials, tribulations, hearing the voice of Hussein calling you, understanding what happened in Karbala, the story of Abbas and Hussein alayhi salam, the story of the younger Fatima who was left in Medina, and the story of Tafl al-Radhiya. All 3 of them have their own individual tracks. So number 1, trials and tribulations, the voice of Hussein calling you towards Karbala. The 3 trials, the 3 tragedies of Karbala, which I pinpointed in the album. And then the last one is called The Beautiful Embrace. So once you've taken in the tragedy and your own personal life and your own complications and your own trials and tribulations, you take that and then you finally embrace Imam Hussein alayhi salam when you arrive in Karbala. That's the whole point of the album. Now what I wanted to do, because of the fact that there's a beautiful embrace at the end of the album, I wanted to introduce a story form for my audience. So what I did was I come up with a story with the help of Reza John Vidadi. We came up with this story by means of a man who lives in the West, very wealthy, and I'll give you quite brief. There's loads of details to it, but it's very brief. A man who lives in the West, very wealthy, not very religious. His mum passes away, but before she passes away, she tells him that I want you to visit Imam Hussein alayhi salam at least once in your life. So he says, no problem, okay, I'll try and do that. She passes away. He's gone through a trial, the trial of his mum passing away. So he's very downhearted, he's very depressed, and it's a tragedy for him. So he says, okay, I'm going to fulfill the wish of my mother and travel towards Iraq. When he does travel towards Iraq, before he does, I play the first track of Songs of Freedom, upon which the track is talking about trials and tribulations, but hearing the voice of Hussein, the soothing voice of Hussein calling you towards Karbala. So then the second part of the story is that he wants to go to Iraq, but he wants to learn more about this tragedy. What happened? What are the details? Who passed away? Who didn't? Who got martyred? The story of Karbala in itself. So he stumbles across this young girl who was called Fatima, who was the daughter of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but she was very ill, and she couldn't travel to Karbala with her father. He gets very emotionally attached to the story, and so what he does, he recites the second track within the album. Okay, so it's all story, recitation, story, recitation, story, recitation. So then what he does is he then travels to Iraq, again, more trials and tribulations, losing his wallet, trying to walk to Imam Hussein, there was no hotel, whatever, and then he finally just lets go of everything and embraces the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So that was the beautiful embrace. So all of the trials and tribulations in a story mode. So the whole album, so again, the reason why we're there is to introduce ziyarah. So the album and the story was about ziyarah and really connecting Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the beautiful embrace. Once you did have that beautiful embrace, you then learn from Imam Hussein alayhi salam, you learn from the tragedy, you seek intellectual nourishment from the tragedy, and that should, in essence, take you higher and higher as a human being. So we ended with the track
Yes, yesterday we finished the event in Sydney, the fundraising event. It was quite a phenomenal event actually, because it was the first time this kind of event was organised here in Sydney, whereby there was a documentary and then recitations. The Cities of Light documentary was received very well. A lot of the people were interested, and the undertones of the whole event, and that is the inspiration of ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, was also received very well. People were inspired. People had another look on ziyarah, another angle of ziyarah, not what they're usually accustomed to, because the documentary gives you a view from 3 different people. So people were very interested in the documentary. Me personally, I had quite an enjoyable night, because I managed to do something new with chorus and vocals in the background, as well as reciting over it. So it was received very well. I love the audience, they're very interactive. But hopefully now we're looking forward to Melbourne, which we're actually at the airport now. We're looking forward to Melbourne. Again, it's going to be the same kind of program, whereby we're airing the documentary and there's recitations after. So we've heard some good reviews about Melbourne audience, so hopefully that should be a good event to go to, inshallah.
Who's that stranger? Listen to the footsteps run underneath the burning sun. I'm hoping he's no danger.